Welcome to the Terrible Podcast with your hosts from SteelersDepot.com, where you can find all your latest and greatest Steelers news. It's Dave Bryan and Alex Kozora, always lit, talking Steelers. And now, here's Dave and Alex.
Welcome to the Terrible Podcast, Season 11, Episode 108. He's Dave Bryan. I'm Alex Kozora, SteelersDepot.com. Suppose this is a special edition of the Terrible Podcast since this is Saturday morning. Dave and I are recording this at the conclusion of Day 2 and just about to get started for Day 3. By the time you are listening to this, Dave, Steelers made 2 picks yesterday. Can't wait to talk about them with you.
Oh, let's get after it, man. I don't know about you, but I spent the greater part of the, I don't know if you call that night or morning. I was digging through some Big Ten tape. Hey, I told you we're going to have some Big Ten players to, you better have at least 1 or 2 in your final mock. And so far, the Steelers have 3 picks on the board, and 2 of them are Big Ten players. And I would venture a guess we might see at least 1 more Big Ten player today, and I'm willing to bet we get us a Golden Domer at some point today.
Yeah, we'll see if they have a chance to get Notre Dame guy yesterday. End up going in a different direction here. So let's just dive right in here and talk about what happened on Day 2 of the NFL Draft with the Steelers' first pick at number 55 overall. A man we had a lot of discussion about in the pre-draft process, and we'll certainly have a lot of discussion about from here on forward, was Penn State tight end Pat Freiermuth. It really was kept secret. This team really liked Freiermuth. I know both of us came extremely close to including Freiermuth in our final mock draft. You had Freiermuth in your original mock draft. Your original mock draft's looking pretty good. You should have just subbed that one back in, but Freiermuth the pick at 55.
It's giving me a reason just to do 1 mock draft.
You're looking for any avenue there.
It is usually my initial mock drafts. Now, obviously, usually my initial mock drafts come out right after the Senior Bowl, but with doctor visits and the site and all, like, anyway, just so busy this offseason, got pushed back. Only did 2 of them there. I don't know what it is, but as of late, my initial mock drafts usually end up being my best one. And boy, for the Steelers' first 2 picks this year, we talked about how was there any possible way to draw a straighter line from Senior Bowl to draft day with Najee Harris? You could say the same thing really from the Penn State Pro Day till draft day when it comes to Freiermuth too. I mean, could we have any more? They might as well wore T-shirts, saying we're going to draft these 2 guys, because obviously it's easier to look back after the picks are made and say this kind of stuff. But I mean, really, it was. I mean, you look at the relationship Alfredo Roberts had. It's like that was his son out there, after the tight end drills at the Penn State at the Penn State Pro Day, and obviously you had the video up of that right after that happened. You and I got to sit in, I think, on the Pat Freiermuth Pro Day interview after that, which was mighty noisy too. I think they had those kids too close together or something like that. But anyway, he's the pick, and I mean, I don't know where you want to start on this. We have talked about him quite a bit throughout this process.
We have, and yeah, just to kind of go back to the point that you made, because, some teams try to play coy about this. I see that the Cowboys, Mike McCarthy didn't even talk to Micah Parsons. I know what, Javonte Williams, when the Broncos took him, I think it was the Broncos that took him, whoever selected him was like, barely even talked to Denver. It's not that in Pittsburgh. It's obvious. It's, oh yeah, they love that guy. Like, we knew that, 2 months ago. And so just to see the difference between almost a transparency of the pre-draft interest. But yeah, with Freiermuth, I mean, do you think this is a good value? I guess I should start with that question. We'll talk about the player here in a moment. But do you think 55 is good value? I know you were kind of viewing him as more of a round 3 kind of guy, and wasn't sure if you really liked him as your second tight end in this class. So from a value standpoint, what do you think of the pick?
I mean, look, I was one of the original ones that said let's pump the brakes on calling him a top 50 player, right?
Mm-hmm.
And where did he go?
Oh, I mean, he went 55.
Right,
I mean,
so he's outside the top 50 there. in a normal, I guess in this draft class, he is tight end 2, but there was a huge gap between tight end 1, tight end 2 in this. If this is if this is like last year's draft class, if you're commingling a couple of draft classes, I really think he's a 3rd round player. But overall, obviously, and I put this in, I think in my last mock that, if the Steelers like him, that's where they're going to probably grab him as a 2nd round, because it's probably unlikely that he would have still been on the board for him by the time they got around to the 3rd round pick. Am I shocked that he's in the 2nd round? I mean, when you talk about value, obviously, if given a choice, I would have rather had Tommy Tremble in the 4th as opposed to Freiermuth in the 2nd, but Tommy Tremble didn't end up making it to the 4th round. So, what are you going to what do you grab then? So you would have obviously had to. Did Trimble go before? Trimble went before the Steelers' 3rd round pick, right? Yeah.
Was he? He was right around there. Might have been. I thought he was right after. Let me check. He went to Carolina. I know that. Let me see where he went. 83. So yeah, just before actually.
All right. So you wouldn't even have got him at your 3rd round pick there. So. Correct. It would, ideally, just reading the tea leaves, if they were going to draft a tight end in this draft in the first 4 rounds, you would have probably bet good money that it would have either been Freiermuth or Trimble, right?
Yes.
All right. Well, you obviously couldn't get Trimble in the 3rd. And really, that obviously means you couldn't get him in the 4th. So, I mean, grabbing Freiermuth where they got him in the 2nd, if you're asking about value, that's the value.
Yeah, no, I agree. I think that was probably about his projection was a 2nd round, mid-2nd round kind of guy. So I don't think the value was too far off there. The big question was, and I don't want to play this game too much because I prefer to focus on the player that they took as opposed to the ones that they could have taken but didn't. But you had some really top centers on the board, including Creed Humphrey, to me the best center in this class, and certainly position this team needs to upgrade and try to do so in the 3rd round. But to take Freiermuth, I think a good, not great player over a guy like Humphrey hurt a little bit, but I do obviously want to prefer and put the focus on the player himself in the majority of this conversation.
Yeah, look, I thought they were going center there. I really did after coming. I mean, we both knew that Freiermuth would be an option there, but on the flip side, they Kevin Colbert tried to tell us, and Art Rooney second too. They viewed this as a deeper, kind of center class, if you will, for whatever reason. They didn't have Humphrey ranked ahead of Freiermuth, right?
Yeah, obviously not. And they didn't show a ton of pre-draft interest in Humphrey, and I don't want to make this podcast about, why they didn't take Creed Humphrey, but there was certainly going to be a debate or discussion about was that the best player for Pittsburgh at 55, was it Pat Freiermuth? But I should not be the one complaining because I'm the one that has yelled and screamed and stamped my feet for, 3-4 years now about this team not making an investment at tight end. And I had the article after the Colbert presser or whenever it was a couple weeks ago that could the Steelers could this be the year the team takes a big swing at taking a tight end? And they did, to at least relatively speaking, the first tight end they've taken in the top 4 rounds in Spaeth in 2007, which just blows my mind. So that streak is finally over. So I am happy to see them make hopefully a long-term investment at the position.
Look, that's one of the positions I love. I love scouting. In that I just. I've all along I have kind of viewed Freiermuth as kind of a souped up Jesse James. All right. He's not George Kittle in my opinion. Now, as I have said, a few times, I think in the last couple of weeks here, when you go back and you start digging deeper into Freiermuth's tape as far as the blocking side of it, I think you find an above average blocker. A guy that for his size uses does a very good job of keeping the pad level low. Not opposed to doing that kind of work at all. Has a willingness to do it, but On top of it, I mean, what's the measuring stick? At least in my eyes, it's kind of, when it comes to blocking tight ends, it would be a George Kittle. Like, he's not George Kittle. He's not throwing guys out of the club like that. But he is a very serviceable end of the line blocking tight end, and that's one of the things that, at least in the last several drafts, right? When it comes to, it's usually the kid is undersized but a willing blocker and not much in the passing game, or he's more wide receiver than he is tight end, and a guy you're going to split out more wide. It's very rare in today's NFL that you see those more accomplished, I guess, all around tight ends. A la the Heath Millers, a la the Jason Wittens, Kelsey, those kind of guys. You might get one, maybe two, I think, a draft season. If you don't get those guys, you're usually leaning, once again to either an undersized guy that's a good blocker, or the properly sized guy that has the willingness to block, but just can't get it done, for whatever reason there. So, I mean, what did we say was one of the major holes on this roster going into the draft here?
Yeah, tight end depth was non-existent, and they needed to address it in some form or fashion, and obviously they have.
Yeah, we need to stop the whole Baby Gronk thing, right?
Well, A, he hates the nickname, and B, it's not accurate. So, yes,
right.
on both fronts, I think we have to stop. Yeah, I think the well-roundedness of Freiermuth's game is probably what attracted them the most to him and why he was the pick, because you're right. It's usually you're in one camp or the other. You get the ultra-receiving tight end, you get the ultra-blocking tight end later in the draft, and rarely do you find a guy that can kind of do everything, and he can. And remember, this guy, he's not young. He's 22. He's a little older than I thought, but he's an underclassman, and he only played 4 games this past year due to that shoulder injury. So I think he's going to grow and continue to get better. And there's still probably a lot more of his game that has to improve. I think as a blocker, I think he is a serviceable blocker. I think he struggles more in some of the split zones and pulls, which the Steelers, at least they have in the past, often done. So he'll have to work on that. But a better blocker than a lot of these tight ends coming out.
He was the deeper my initial thought was okay blocker. Okay, I think the deeper you get into it, you can check a box of him being an above average blocker. And is there room for him to get better there? We'll definitely see here. I think he does a better job with quickness off the ball. One of the things with Jesse James, I thought sometimes, especially early in his career. Now Jesse James became a lot better blocker, right?
Oh yeah, much better.
From day one till the time that he left the Steelers. In fact, it was sad at the point you spend all that time to get Jesse James to where he was, and then out the door he goes, right?
Yep.
I think Freiermuth obviously enters the NFL a lot more nuanced as a blocker. As far as the receiving thing goes, and I watched a lot of targets on him, Alex, and just not an accomplished route runner overall. He's not the kind of guy that I think is going to really run away from a lot of people here. Now, where he does his damage is, he's got an extremely wide catch radius with him. He's got he can make the combative catch. Real strong hands, I think. So a guy that's very good at settling in zones and making sure he flashes those numbers real good, gives the quarterback a good target. Really proficient in the red zone, at least statistical wise. Should be a nice red zone target at the NFL level. Once again, not a guy that's probably going to run away from a lot of people overall. And, the Penn State fans that listen to this podcast will say, oh, it's all on the quarterback, man, because, there's, as far as an average depth of target versus depth of reception, 2 stats that I'm a big fan on, especially when it comes to tight end. It separates the Thad Mosses from the I don't know what's a good example to use there, outside of, but the kind of the tight ends that can get down the field there, the Pitts. Let's say that kind of tight ends there. You throw out a couple of those blown coverage receptions that Jesse had, and you're looking at those average depth of reception numbers, and they're not overly great at all. Now they are above average, or above. They're above Thad Moss, kind of thing there. But once again, how much of that do you want to put on the quarterback play? How much do you want to put on he's just not a down the field kind of tight end? Now, can he run the seam? Yeah, there are instances where you see him be able to run the seam, but a good athletic, above average athletic linebacker or safety is going to, not going to be threatened, I don't think, vertically by a guy like Freiermuth.
Yeah, I think you're right, and we're going to have to put the count of how often either of us, because I'm going to make this mistake too, call him Jesse James. I think you're up to 1 right now. You just slipped into Jesse there on Freiermuth.
Did I?
Yeah, he did.
Okay. Well, he does remind you a lot of Jesse James. I mean, like I said at the start, he is kind of a souped up Jesse James. I think.
Yeah, my comp to him in the tape that I watched, I went Hayden Hurst, former first-round pick of the Ravens, who's had a decent career. Excuse me, and mostly in Atlanta after getting traded over a couple of years ago. My comp was some combination of Hayden Hurst to Austin Hooper is kind of where I'm at right now. With Pat Freiermuth. You're right. He's not a dynamic guy. It's early. I'm really tired right now. I apologize. But that blown coverage against Nebraska, I think I mentioned, he's wide open and he gets caught at the 1 yard line. Just kind of shows that this is not a tremendous athlete that you're getting right now. He's a guy that does not create a lot of separation. I actually have in my notes here, it seems like he just kind of bounces into defenders to try to box them out, and that's how he creates separation. He's not going to win with a lot of space. He's going to win with toughness and combat catches and a large catch radius, as you mentioned, and some really tough hands. So his game is not going to be creating space at the top of his route or running away from guys or things like that, but it's going to be using his size, his physicality, and his hands to win in those kind of tough combat catches. That's going to be Freiermuth's path to success in the NFL.
As far as I'm trying to look back at the contextualization on him and the after the catch, 5.65 yards gained after the catch in 2020 on 33 of those 130 total yards were gained after receptions. One came against Nebraska on the aforementioned blown coverage there. He also had 2 drops in 2020 as well there too. So the yak there of 5.65. There was a lot of how much yak was on that play there against Nebraska. That
30 yards.
There was 33 yards of yak on that 74-yard play. So 33 of, did I put the total yak yardage in there? 130, yeah. So 33 of those 130 yak yards came on that blown coverage against Nebraska. He's physical. It's not like he goes down right away after catch. It's just that he doesn't run away from people after the catch.
Yeah, I can kind of.
He tries to run over them.
He does, and that's going to be his path. Is there any comparison to Vance to be made here? I've got some questions about that. I don't know if he's quite as violent as Vance was in his prime, but I think there's something there with that.
Well, when Vance came out, he was a lot more. Is linear the word? Kind of more. Vance kind of put some meat on him, especially in when you think back to what was it 2 years ago when you kind of saw that beast mode Vance.
Wait, when you say linear, what do you mean? Kind of size or
just kind of a slimmer build, not as leaner.
Okay, they just said linear.
Well, I did say linear, but
you did say linear.
I probably used it in the wrong context.
All right, I gotcha. Yeah. What did Vance come out? What was his size? All right, now we're already in the weeds here.
What did he like 241 or something?
If you get that right, if you could somehow recall Vance McDonald in 2013, what his weight was, what'd you say?
241.
No, 267 actually.
Was he that big? Okay.
Yeah. I mean, at least according to the DraftScout.com, and so he was a lot heavier than he's a lot longer than Freiermuth was too. But in terms of play, I can kind of get that. But again, my comp was Hayden Hurst, Austin Hooper. Just to kind of go through some of my notes here that I had taken, I didn't do the profile on Freiermuth, so just to kind of look at some of the notes that I had written down on him, I said big, tough, combat catchability, tough over the middle of the field. Wide catch radius, good frame, length. Although the length actually is 32.5, so it's about average. Let's see, shows inline work, able to combo dry feet, not overwhelming but good effort and decent results. On the negative side of things, I said loses balance in open space, won't run well, and isn't fluid, creates little separation, boxes out against defenders, not a dynamic player, shows a little nasty in his game. Power does create some yak. So again, I don't think you're getting someone that's going to have, 13, 14 yards of reception. You're going to get somebody who's going to run Hank. I love running Hank on 1st and 10, that little sit down over the ball route, 5 yards downfield, and it's going to be kind of that, in that true sense of the word, the security safety valve for Ben and whoever the quarterback of the future is going to be.
And he's obviously one of the earlier ones that I kind of tackled there as far as oh boy, I can't wait to get into the Pat Freiermuth, because there was, let's face it, you can get caught up in the Twitter buzz on players, right? And he was a guy, especially early, before hurting his shoulder and all. There was a lot of buzz on him, and a lot of people saying, "Oh, he's future Steeler," that kind of stuff. But I think once you get past those early, the 2019 highlights and the few 2020 highlights with him, you don't come away blown away off of his tape, I don't think.
No, you don't. But
you do see the well-roundedness there,
And some of the tough catches he made, to me, kind of was like a wow moment. They're not the 50-yard catch downfield, but when you're making a tough catch and getting popped over the middle, that to me can be just as much of a wow moment.
Well, based on the build-up that I had seen on him prior to the first deeper dive into him, I kind of came away, when you're expecting to taste one thing and someone tells you about, man, you got to try this. It's just fantastic, and you get it, you're like, yeah, it ain't all that,
Who are you hanging around with?
No, I'm talking about back when you're growing up and all like that. Obviously, I barely leave the house now. That should be pretty evident. But
I still have growing up. I don't know who you hang around with.
Some
characters, maybe.
Yeah, you probably wouldn't want to hang around those people. But anyway, just a lot, based on a lot left to be desired, I guess, based on what the buildup was to him. But that's why you watch the tape, right?
Sure. And again, I like this pick overall. I framed it as a good, not great pick. I think one thing we have to keep in context with Freiermuth is what will his year one impact be? And it might not be exactly what some people think or hope it'll be for two reasons. A, just for any tight end to make the jump from college to pro, it's a really tough transition. I've said that many times before. And then B, for Freiermuth specifically, he's a junior who played 4 games this past year. So he does not have a ton of football under his belt. He is 22, so he's an older junior. It's probably why he came out early. But he has just not played a ton of football. And so I think that transition to the NFL is going to be difficult, and that year one impact may not be, immediate. Usually it takes those guys about a year before they really feel comfortable in the NFL.
Well, look, I mean, like you said at the start there, we both said this team's got to get a tight end, right? And they got a tight end, and they got one that can be on the field in 2 and 3 tight end situations there. So, value ranking wise, however we want to look at it, I mean, a lot of people had had Freiermuth as tight end number 2. So you have come out of the first 2 rounds of the draft with arguably a player that was viewed as the top running back in this year's draft class, and you came out of the second round with what people arguably call the second best tight end in this class, and probably the number 1 most well-rounded one.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, but the thing is, will he give you that impact right away? Because they need someone who's going to impact things right away. They need a number 2 tight end. And Freiermuth, obviously, on paper, looks like he'll be that guy or could be that guy. But just generally speaking, it takes takes those tight ends a year. So I'm glad they got one now, because if Ebron's gone after this upcoming season, then hopefully Freiermuth can step in and be your starter for 2022. So it's good to get those guys a year early as opposed to the year that you need them. But I just wonder if he's going to have those predictable rookie tight end struggles that almost every single guy does, especially, again, when you're a junior who played just 4 games this past season.
I mean, y'all at least be able to get him on the field for what, 400 snaps at a minimum?
I mean, on paper, yeah, but is he ready for those snaps is the question.
You got Haig that you can use in some situations, but I mean, you're most definitely not gonna throw to that tight end when he's on the field. There, I mean, you could probably say the same about Trimble had you drafted him, right?
That dude's only 20.
How much you were going to be out in the field. You're going to put him on the field in 2 tight end situations. So however many of that at least, and then obviously assuming Eric Ebron stays healthy and all like that, man, you got to get him, like it or not, you got to get him on the field. You got to get him on the field for at least 400 snaps, I think. I mean, if you go run the football too, man, you better have a lot of 12 personnel out there, So
Sure.
He better put his big boy pants on in a hurry, because they have to get him on the field, I think. And like you said, normally you see with these underclassmen and all, especially tight end, there's that curve there. But I don't think you can wait now. In today's NFL, I don't think you can wait. Period. I think you got to start getting these guys more on the field right away.
Yeah, he's going to play, and they really don't have any other options right now. So maybe by default, he's going to have to take his lumps, and that'll accelerate the learning curve and obviously get him more ready for 2022. So those are good things. But I say all that to say, and I don't know if he would do it, but if Jesse James is still willing to come into Pittsburgh, I'm signing him. Monday.
Oh yeah, tomorrow. I mean, or Monday. Absolutely. If Jesse wants to come back for yeah. I mean, look, you could do worse for a tight end group of Eric Ebron, Jesse James, and Pat Freiermuth. Right?
Mm-hmm. It's getting very Penn State-y in that room with James and Freiermuth, but I think that's going to help you not feel like you have to put Freiermuth out there if he's not ready, or in certain situations, or kind of limit things and give him a more narrow path to start. And if he's not working out for whatever reason because of those rookie struggles, you have Jesse James. So that's the reason why I say about Freiermuth, having those probable rookie issues, and why you still would look to add, to me at least, the veteran Jesse James is the most obvious name, of course, on that list.
Yeah, we'll see. I mean, look, it's an obvious still connect the dot situation when it comes to Jesse. Like I said, it sure would alleviate a little bit of the rush of getting Freiermuth out there for 400 snaps. You could probably, second half of his rookie season work on getting him most of those snaps at that point.
Yeah, so just food for thought. Overall, again, I like the pick. What I have taken Freiermuth, I would have taken, Creed Humphrey. But I think Freiermuth is a good player, and again, I'm just happy they're making that long-term investment at the position that is just, to me, sorely overdue. Right.
I mean, look, we went into this saying where are the holes on the roster. You remember that next to last podcast or last podcast that we did. We said, what are the glaring holes on the depth chart that this team has? And we named tight end. I think we named the center position. I think we named outside linebacker for sure. I mean, we went into this knowing they were going to come out of the first 2 picks with a running back, and they did that. Cornerback is the other position that you could say need to do something there, and then even going to step further, what's going to happen with the safety depth? So all right. Offense, first 2 picks. How surprised were you? Even though we probably thought it would probably be more running back center, but still offense, probably not a huge shock overall.
No, I guess the question was, maybe this is a good segue. How about offense with pick number 87 in round 3 with Kendrick Green? That was the question, was would you see a defender there that was possible? But you really kind of felt like you had to come away day 2 with an offensive lineman, specifically a center, and they did with the selection of Kendrick Green.
I guess that puts the end of you can't the Steelers, the age old Blues Clues of the mocking of you can never mock 3 players on one side of the ball first 3 rounds anymore, right? Because that is now broken, but it certainly was understandable. I thought maybe if there was a chance that they went defense in the 3rd round there, that you could see maybe a Browning or an inside linebacker or an edge there. But the fact that they did not draft a center with the first 2 picks, that worm kind of turned real quick. You said, boy, if a guy like Quinn Miners is still on the board there, that has to be the pick, right?
Mm-hmm. I thought it was going to be. I thought it was, but it was not.
It was not. And
guess where Quinn Miners went?
Of course.
To Denver with Mike Munchak.
Right.
But again, focusing on the player that they did take, Kendrick Green out of Illinois. One of the shorter centers they've had, under 6'2", a squatty body, athletic. I know I didn't watch a ton on him before the draft. I don't believe you did either.
I watched one game, and I watched the wrong game.
Okay. And I watched 2 last night because it was super late, and I was really tired, so I just wanted to get an understanding of an idea of what the team was getting with Kendrick Green. So he's a guy that I still have to do more work on, but what are your impressions of Kendrick Green?
6'0", so not even 6'2", 305 pounds, 32.25-inch arms. I don't think he has a problem getting into any lobsters, though. 10 1/8-inch hands. I like to watch him and James Washington play rock paper scissors or something like that. That should be something. So he's got some lobster claws on him, and he knows how to use them here. The game that I had watched on him prior to this, and built up a perceived profile in my head, was a game against Northwestern from last year. As it turns out, I think that was his worst game of the season. So I picked a hell of a game to jump in and do a quick eval on him. Where do you want to start on him? I think you start on the rest of the measurables with him. One of the, if not the sporkiest interior lineman in this year's draft class, or outside of maybe Creed Humphrey, right? Creed, I think, had a RAS of like a perfect 10, that's rare, man.
I think Miners was better as well.
Okay.
Second.
Maybe Miners. What was Miners? Let me look at what.
He was second in the center ranking all time behind Creed Humphrey. I forget what.
Yeah, 9.98 on our RAS on Miners. So Kendrick Green had a RAS of 9.24, a spork of 126.8. All right, what does the tape say on him? First of all, what was he at Illinois? You have a guy that played a lot of left guard there. I think 27, 28 games at left guard, 4 at center, with I think 3 of those coming in 2020 there. So not a lot of center experience. And in fact, I want to say it's around 320 or 330 total snaps at center at the college level. What else is there when it comes to him? Very athletic, low center of gravity with him. Can fire off the ball quickly. Can get to the second level. Very, very quick with him. Uses when he does use his hands correctly, uses them very, very well. Has a wrestling background. You'd start diving into the tape with him. That fight scene in They Live, where he goes, "You nasty mother." He is a nasty, what there. He tries to put everybody into the dirt and finish them. Sometimes he gets too aggressive in that and misses. Kind of the way that Chris Kimuato used to miss sometimes when he'd get overly aggressive there. Chris Kimuato was more straight line, bowling ball, had that kind of that rumpus look to him. Green far more athletic and has a nice change of direction to him. However, when he does get overly aggressive, he does miss. Low center of gravity, able to get up underneath pads of defensive linemen, and he likes to toss them. Good torque, upper body torque with him.
It's that wrestling background.
Yeah, it's that wrestling background with him. He will toss people. He will toss people bigger than him. The thing that sticks out to me, and I've watched all 7 games, the greater part of all 7 games on the Big 10 and 30, the condensed versions of those games, all 7 from last season there. You put someone nose up over him, especially at the center position or even at the guard position, he can hook them, no problem. He can get off the ball. He can hook those guys. A very good reach. He's got the quickness. He can reach out even at the center position. He can reach out to those threes and get them. And even some 4 eyes, he can get out there that quick on some of those slower 4 eyes. And reach them, and not only that, he can turn them back inside there as well too. A very accomplished puller, which is very nice. You know how I feel about that. Low center of gravity once again. When he does get on the move, he's not afraid to coil himself up there and seal out that edge on the outside there. As far as the snapping of the football goes, once again, we're dealing with 300 total snaps there, but nothing stuck out to me that says, well, this guy looks like he's very inexperienced snapping the football.
Yeah, I think the lack of starts at center is a bit misleading, the only 4 starts, because if you look at the snap count totals, it's over 300. So there were a lot of games, and Adrian Clem alluded to this and was impressed by was that he had to play a lot of center in game. For example, I did watch the Northwestern game from 2020, and he started at left guard, and then for the second half he played center. So he's got a lot of center work there, even though it doesn't go down as a start at center on the official stat sheet. So there's that. And so, yeah, Adrian Clem talked about the versatility, the toughness. Illinois was not a very good team this past year. They went 2-6, had a lot of changes at quarterback and injuries along the O-line, and so Green had to really kind of be the leader and make calls, even at guard, Clem said, which is pretty unusual. Kind of had to really step up and be that kind of leader for him. And he is a good athlete. And so you kind of wonder, will this team switch to more zone blocking with the addition of Green, who was profiled as a zone scheme type of guy? They're in a lot of zone at Illinois. And the hiring of assistant offensive line coach Chris Morgan, who has a zone scheme background, especially with Atlanta and Kyle Shanahan. But this was a bit of a surprise, and I'm only 2 games in, Dave, and I see a lot of issues on tape that have me concerned, to be honest with you.
He does end up on the ground a little bit.
A lot. He's on the ground a lot for this for a lineman. That's always a bad sign. I think the lack of length hurts him quite a bit. Watched the Michigan game in 2019, even against blitzing linebackers. If he can't get his hands into you early, he's going to really struggle to anchor. He has some strength, but he just doesn't have the length to always win some of those battles. He's a really ineffective cut blocker, so if they're going to run more zone stuff, that's going to, I think, be an issue. I think in pass pro, he loses too much. He's on the ground a lot, as I said. And I just think overall, is he going to be big enough? I mean, maybe this scheme and the system and the style guys are going to be different here under Clem and Morgan, but he is not a big guy. And typically for Pittsburgh, they want some bigger linemen. And when you play AFC North against some of these big nose tackles, I think it's going to be a struggle for him.
I concur. Everything that you said there. He is a better run blocker than he is a pass protector, in my opinion. Sometimes, especially at the guard position, he will get that base of his a little bit too wide, I think, and then that prevents the ability of him to use his feet properly and change directions. You'll see sometimes where he'll get beat inside by some linebackers there. Overall, more of a run blocker than he is a pass blocker, period. There's some holding issues, I think, some penalty issues in the background. I mean, going on with him, a bit grabby at time as well, too. He is a guy, though, that I don't, you don't want him just standing there in the phone booth all the time. You want to take advantage of his athleticism and putting him out in space, getting off those dual. He can get out and get to the second level, and he has no problem you sending him after a safety or a corner or even a smaller linebacker there at the second level. He's not afraid to hit people. He's not afraid to initiate contact overall. Period.
Yeah, I think on the plus side of him is that, and Clem talked about this as well, is the violence in his hands. He's got a very powerful punch. He's able to unlock his hips and explode and deliver, I think, a rising strike on contact. The leverage can work in his favor. Being a smaller, shorter guy, he can really get in the pad level whenever he's able to initiate contact and win early. If he can't win early, though, he's really going to struggle. So it's going to be about him winning with that initial punch and the initial steps and those things being really clean overall. But Again, I don't want to get too wrapped up on the size, but he goes 6'0", 305 with 32 and a quarter inch arms. Let me read off another player for you, Dave. Guess who this guy is? 6'0", 302, 32 and 5/8. Who's that player I'm talking about?
That 6'02" sounds like Miners.
No, J.C. Hassenauer.
Okay.
6'0", 302, 32 and 5/8. That is taller, the same weight, and longer than Kendrick Green. Now, I think Green's obviously a different body type than Hassenauer. I think he's just a more rocked up, muscly dude overall, and certainly I think a better player than J.C. Hassenauer. But we know the size concerns there with Hassenauer. Is the same going to happen with Kendrick Green? I'm kind of worried that it is.
Well, he's far more athletic than Hassenauer is.
Yeah, but I'm talking about just from a size standpoint, because I think in the Steelers system, their best offensive linemen have always been guys who are bigger, pouncy, a much bigger guy, obviously.
Well, that's why, you start and once again, what do you think about the Northwestern tape?
I mean,
that's where I started. So, I mean, obviously, is that the only game how many games have you?
No. I started with Michigan, the All-22 of Michigan in 2019. I started there. And now, granted, he was a sophomore in that game, so I think context there is important. I just see a lot of variance in this game. I see some really impressive reps, Dave, but I see some really ugly reps as well. And I don't like my offensive linemen to be super high variance type guys.
But did you watch the Northwestern game from this?
Did.
Huh?
Yes, I did.
Okay, so you see where my initial view was on him then.
Yeah, I did think it was. Again, I think the two games that I've seen so far, I've seen up and down. I've seen inconsistency. I've seen some really good plays. Even the Northwestern game, there were some impressive.
Oh yeah, he's not afraid to help.
Yeah, that look for work clip he posted. I ended up going back and seeing that. Yeah, I mean, and certainly Clem's goal, and he's preached this whole offseason, was physicality. Guys who are physical, nasty, and Green certainly is. There's no debate about that. My worry is how much more is that? Is it good enough to say, well, he's aggressive, he's physical, he'll try to kick your butt? But there's still a lot of other issues in this game, and there's still a lot more to being a good offensive lineman than just being nasty and trying to throw guys out of the club. Right.
Is he more than a bar bouncer?
Right. And that's my worry, to be honest with you.
I mean, he's got the athleticism there. And here's the other concern here, too. I mean, how many games did he start? The fact of the matter is he enters the NFL with less than 400 center snaps, and that's not a lot. And
is he a redshirt junior? He's a junior. I mean, he's an underclassman too, so hopefully he'll continue to grow the way that Freiermuth will.
If there is a plus with him, another plus with him, it would be, I'm trying to see it, his redshirt junior.
Okay, yeah. So, I mean, again, a good amount of starting experience for a redshirt junior, but still a guy who hopefully is going to continue to grow. He's not, a maxed out senior.
I mean, how much more? I mean, is he going to get? He might get 6'2", right?
Well, I say that just from a bit more of a technical, experience kind of standpoint than I am saying he's not going to get. His frame is basically maxed out. He's not going to add a lot of weight, or obviously he's not getting any taller at this point.
I'm going to guarantee he's going to get in a few brouhahas at camp. He's that guy that walks into the bar and you say, oh, that's that guy that walks into the bar. You know what I'm saying? He's kind of wired a little bit differently. He likes to play the hammer and nail game, and he's not afraid to end up being the nail either.
There's a lot of intangibles that Clem seem to really like. His
right.
IQ, His toughness, his alpha, called him a leader in that room, and Illinois had a lot of turbulence. And so I think there are intangible things that we won't see on tape that were impressive to Adrian Clem.
And obviously we can't hear the all 22, but to hear Clem and and to watch the pointing and all that goes on, the silent film work, it really does seem like he has a good grasp of offensive schemes and what his role is and all like that is on that. So obviously too small to be, in my opinion, most definitely in every down guard, but that's where most of his work is at the college level there. If he is going to survive, and it's obvious because of the need the Steelers have, it's got to be at the center position there. He is a guy that can give you some emergency snaps. Obviously at left guard, I don't think there's any right guard snaps on his tape whatsoever there. Not that that's a huge, we would like to have seen him play a little bit of right guard kind of thing there. Look, you obviously have a left guard in Kevin Dotson, who's going and once, when and if the time that David DeCastro's time is up, you would expect maybe Dotson, because that's his home, to maybe go over to right guard. This is a guy that, could give you snaps if need be at left guard. You probably just not going to. His home is at center, where he's going to make his money at the NFL level.
Yeah, he was definitely drafted to be a center for the Pittsburgh Steelers, and he doesn't have a ton of experience there, but I think more than what some of the start numbers indicate, as I mentioned earlier. I think he's a really torquey guy. I think torquey is a good way to describe him, the way he fires out, the way you're talking about. I just see a lot of highs, a lot of lows in his game, and he's going to hopefully get better and work with Clem and all that, and just grow as a player. But I don't know about this one, Dave. I got to watch more. I have only 2 games in, so it's a smaller sample size. But I think there are some obvious limitations in his game that aren't going to get a whole lot better once you start playing professional football.
Well, you saw what I wrote initially on Twitter about him. Hold on a minute here, and I'll pull up that tweet. This was pre-draft or pre-selection yesterday on him. I wrote
it's about his height.
Just about. Hold on a minute here. I'll find it. Let me find it real quick here.
Yeah, I'm trying to remember. Was this the one about how short he was? I remember you tweeted about that.
Yeah. And the game that I watched as well. Hold on here.
While you do that, it's also worth mentioning Adrian Clem was at his pro day, actually put him through drills. I had the name wrong initially. I thought it was Denzel Martin. Someone corrected me right before the draft, actually. So Adrian Clem was at his pro day, did work him out, and obviously has some firsthand interaction with Kendrick Green.
Pre-selection, folks, Kendrick Green is 6'01", 305. When is the last time the Steelers had a center that small? Tape to me, not all that overall. And that was the Northwestern game.
Okay. And, well, now he's the pick. I mean, he's probably the shortest center they've drafted since A.Q. Shipley, I'm guessing.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. Now, look, I mean, what kept him from being, being drafted earlier? His measurables. What was the reason that got him drafted in the third round? Probably some measurables, that athleticism and all, and nastiness.
Yeah, I think on paper, the upshot here is a Shaq Mason. He actually compares very favorably to what Shaq Mason did coming out of Georgia Tech back in the 4th round in 2015. So that's, I think, to me, his ceiling. I mean, Mason's been more of a guard. I think Green's obviously going to play center, but just in terms of ability and upside and starting potential, that's I think a best case scenario with him, a really athletic guy who's strong and has leverage despite being a shorter, stubbier guy overall. But I think there's a lot of work there to do with him. He's going to compete with Finney for a starting job, but I would not be surprised as we sit here today if Finney is your week 1 center.
He's gonna have to win the job, obviously, and I think I wrote after watching a little bit of his tape. Potentially you could see. Look, you didn't draft this guy in the 3rd round, hopefully to ride out his rookie season, right? on the bench there. Once again, you cannot go into this season thinking B.J. Finney's going to be your 17 game starting center. At least I don't think you can.
But the guy you're competing with is a junior who has a lot of flaws on tape.
They better get him straightened out in a hurry.
Yeah, I just don't know if there's time. So I'm not trying to kill the guy. Again, I think there's upside here and potential. I'm happy for him. His family was going crazy. I mean, how cool was that? I mean, kudos to him. This is an amazing moment. And he dealt with a lot of crap at Illinois. And I wonder if Mike Tomlin called his buddy Lovie Smith a little bit and had a little conversation about Kendrick Green. Those two are pretty close, aren't they? Lovie Smith and Mike Tomlin.
Oh yeah, probably, absolutely. And once again, the thing that stuck out to me the most about negatives with him is over aggressiveness. The lack of length gets him, especially in the pass rush. I think sometimes he just, no matter how quick you try to get those hands out there, sometimes the guy with the longer arms can get inside, can get inside of you. You put two, you're fighting with sticks. Who has the longer stick?
Yeah, he's got to win early. If he doesn't win early, the rep's going to be really bad for him.
Right. And once again, I think he is on the ground a bunch. But a lot of that, how much of that is the over aggressiveness, maybe, because there are a lot of times he just, but Mike Tomlin tell you, I'd rather say whoa than sick him, do not turn your head to this guy though.
In the sense of,
he will, he will hit you. He is not afraid away from the play to take liberties on you.
Sure. Yeah, he's a physical dude. He's nasty. That wrestler, and he was a D tackle too, so he's kind of got that background of just being nasty in the trenches. But again, the worry is, you just want to take a guy who's physical and say, well, that's good enough. We got a really physical guy. That is not always. That's going to get you through college. It's going to get you through the Big Ten on Saturdays, probably playing against some future accountants, but not always going to win alone on Sundays.
Here's the thing too. You talked about zone. I mean, look, they already run, quite a bit of inside zone anyway. People are asking me, are we going to see a lot of? I mean, you're going to see more stuff with him on the move, I would think. I mean, I think you have got to take advantage of his strengths outside of being in the phone booth, right? I mean, so you have got to do things with this guy on the move because he does have that athleticism. He can beat people to points. He can beat linebackers to points and all like that. Now, are we going to see full-blown outside zone kind of stuff? I mean, you got to have the rest of the offensive line be able to run the outside zone too, right? Mm-hmm. And I'm not so sure that I mean, yeah. Well, look, any more outside zone, true outside zone than they run now would be more outside zone because there's not a lot of it, right? But you're not expecting, you're not expecting a lot of full blown outside zone, right?
No, but I don't really know what to expect because they're overhauling this whole thing, Dave. I mean, they have changed every aspect possible with this run game, including coaching staff. So I don't know exactly what to expect because I think they know they needed to make some serious changes at every level. So I don't know exactly what we're going to get with Clem and Morgan in this whole retooled run game.
I think you're going to get more of kind of that lined up, wipe them off the ball, type.
Well, schematically, though, I mean,
yeah,
I think that's what I'm referring to. Hopefully, you have a more physical group. I think that you will. But in terms of the scheme that you're going to run and the differences from Surratt to Clem, I guess I don't really know exactly what to expect.
I mean, I'm just expecting more inside power, just run, just more physical brand of it. I don't think you're going to see a huge shift, especially when it comes to outside zone.
Yeah.
Look, I mean, every NFL teams, all NFL teams run duo. They run, some degree of man, inside zone, split zone.
Sure. No, I get that. Yeah, I just we'll see. I mean, obviously, I don't know if it's going to be a transformation, but maybe here and there, obviously, Clem will put a stamp on this offensive line, on this run game. Overall, as you mentioned, Dave, 3 offensive picks back to back to back. First time that has happened since As Matthew Marksey wrote this morning, it was 1995 with, who was it? It was Cordell Stewart, Mark Bruner, and Brendan Stye. They did take 3 defenders back-to-back in 2016. That was Artie Burns, Sean Davis, Javon Hargrave, but it is pretty rare for that to happen 3 in a row like that.
Right.
So we'll see. You think defense is probably going to have to start coming early today, I would expect.
I would expect at least, and they have, 2 picks in the 4th, 1 in the 6th, and 2 in the 7th. Got to get that punter in there, so you're going to need one of them 7th for that. You think they move it all today? I kind of doubt that they will.
I doubt it. You never know. Maybe to try to bridge that gap from that long wait from pick 140 to 216, but I'm not expecting any movement.
Right. I would expect at least 2 defensive players today, probably 3. I mean, maybe even as many as 4, depending on whether or not they draft a punter or along those lines. They sure could use an edge. Why don't you rattle off some names that could be on in their sights today? Because we got plenty of time to break down Kendrick Green after the fact.
Sure, yeah, some day 3 options to look at. Just kind of went through some of the edge guys. Dalen Hayes from Notre Dame, Hearts and Smarts. That's Dalen Hayes. I had mocked in my mock draft Janarius Robinson out of Florida State, big long dude. Shaka Toney was in your first mock, Dave, the edge from Penn State. Checked every box in there, what they look for. Study some other DBs to look at. It's hard to really nail down what DBs there could be. I put down Ardarius Washington out of TCU, Shakur Brown out of Michigan State. He could be a 6th, 7th round pick. DeMar Hamlin, a safety out of Pitt, a really smart guy with good production. Avery Williams from Boise State, the special teams standout. Those were some defensive guys that I thought could just kind of seem to fit what the Steelers are looking for.
Yeah, look, I mean, they have really been on the fit train so far with especially the first 2 picks, and then you look at Green was a Senior Bowl guy, was he not? Right,
no, he was a junior.
Oh no, he's a junior. That's right.
Yeah. Green, though, he checked every box but height and are what they look for study.
Did he? Okay.
Yeah, well, he checks that box almost.
That definitely has the sport category checked when it comes to that. I think they're done with underclassmen, or are they?
I'm not sure how many underclassmen are even left. They've already taken 2, though, so we would think it's going to be more upperclassmen just because that's what the pool is. Majority of those guys are seniors remaining, but who knows?
I would have bet you dollars to donuts that both of the picks on Friday would not have been underclassmen.
I like underclassmen, though. Now, granted, Pat Freiermuth is not young; he's 22.
Right.
So he's, and Green's a redshirt junior, so I think he's probably effectively a senior as well. But they want guys that they can kind of mold.
The draft obviously fans out quite quickly from here. But if I had to call a shot, Dalen Hayes. I mean, just really, especially on that list that you built. I think we both agree that guy just fits.
Mm-hmm. I love the guy. I don't love the player, though. So right. I would not be crazy about Dalen Hayes being a Steeler as much as I want to root for this guy and think he's a really good dude. I think he's got a lot of shoulder injuries, and the tape was not impressive.
Is Edgerrin Smith
Ellerson Smith?
Ellerson Smith still on the board?
I believe so.
Okay, that could potentially be a name. What about the Houston edge going in the first round?
Yeah, Peyton Turner. I knew Turner was going to go early. I didn't know that early, but I love that pick for the Saints. I mean, great dude. I love this tape.
JOK. Thoughts on JOK?
Yeah, good. You were right. It was a good call on that one. Now you got to play him twice a year, unfortunately, so we'll really get to see how good of a player JOK is. But I guess the lack of size just kind of pushed him down, and just trying to find where he fits best was the issue for teams.
Oh, who else fell that?
Creed Humphrey fell more than I thought he would be, 62 or wherever he went to KC. It's a really good pick for the Chiefs. Landon Dickerson going to the Eagles, first center off the board despite the medical concerns. He's now an Eagle, so he's in PA, just not the team we thought he might be in. Yeah,
they just I guess the medicals just didn't pass the muster with the Steelers. Is I guess the only way I can look at it.
Mm-hmm. Some other day 3 options, even on offense and special teams. Some of the receivers: Marquez Stevenson at Houston. Speaking of Cougars, Austin Watkins, UAB, the guy we had in our mock drafts, Tommy Doyle, the offensive tackle out of Miami, Ohio, and Carson Green, the tackle from Texas A&M. Plus your special teamers, your punters, perhaps. Could this be a punter day? Jerry Dulac can mention Presley Harvin III, the big punter out of Georgia Tech. That could be an option, I think, 6th or 7th round.
Yeah, short yardage capable as well.
Yeah.
Schwartz went to the two guys that I really wasn't high on. I don't think the Steelers ended up going to the Browns. So in Anthony Schwartz and JOK.
Yeah, we'll see Schwartz twice a year. I know there's a lot of speed to cover, but Schwartz was not a guy who impressed me outside of that straight line speed. Also, some DB, Sean Wade, Robert Rochelle still out there as well. I thought they would have made sense even on day 2. We'll see if they could be an option in the 4th round.
The LSU corner that Vincent, I think could possibly be a name to watch for the Steelers later on in these final rounds here.
For what it's worth, though, every single player they've drafted so far has played in 2020. So Colbert's hint they want guys who played is coming true, but we'll see. Still 5 more picks to go.
Tackles.
Yeah, Doyle, Green, I think are 2 guys. Carson Green has really flew under the radar in this process. I think
we talked about him the other day, didn't we?
Yeah, just overall draft wise, I think he's kind of been a name that haven't been discussed much because of how strong this tackle class is. And Tommy Doyle, to me, I think will be a great kind of developmental pick, even as early as 128 or 140.
Right.
All right, Dave. Any reader emails that came in? I don't know if we have time or if we have a lot of emails.
It's probably better we put some. Let's get this wrapped up and out there for the people to listen to, because the draft's going to be getting underway here, the final round. So we'll have plenty more to get to emails after the fact. You and I will be back at it again tomorrow morning, right?
Yep, tomorrow morning, talk about day 3 and the undrafted guys. So the best time when I'm just refreshing Twitter 15 times a minute just to see what undrafted guys come to Pittsburgh. Probably 7 to 10 we're expecting on the number.
All right. And in the meantime, you can follow me on almost 50 posts we had yesterday, Alex.
It might be a record. Honestly, it might be a single day record. What do we do? 46?
46 or something like that within, absolutely. And I don't know how close we'll come to that day, but we'll definitely have quite a few of them out there. But in the meantime, you can follow me on the Twitter machine at Steelers Depot. Follow Alex on the Twitter machine at Alex_Kozora. Follow the show at Terrible Podcast. Email the show, theterriblepodcast@gmail.com. If you like what we do and you want to donate to the cause, and hopefully you have enjoyed all this content for the draft here, go to SteelersDepot.com, hit the donate button up right navigational bar. Also, if you like an ad-free version of the site, please go to SteelersDepot.com and hit the ad-free button up right navigational bar. For $25 for 1 calendar year, you can have an ad-free version of the site. We got the film all out there to the guys. Once again, after the draft is over, we're going to send these guys in 18 different directions, and we hope to try to kind of blow your mind with kind of niche-like kind of film work here. So we should have a pretty good large selection of film to chew on, and not only the draft picks, but the undrafted free agents as well there. So until about the same time tomorrow, as always, thanks for listening to the Terrible Podcast with Dave and Alex.